The Zodiac Killer, a name that still sends chills down spines decades after his reign of terror. He wasn't just any serial killer, he was a phantom, an enigma, taunting the very people hunting him. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, Northern California became the stage for a grim game of cat and mouse. The Zodiac's crime struck fear deep into the heart of America, not just because of the violence, but because of his voice, the letters, cryptograms, and phone calls. The Zodiac became more than a killer, he became a psychological weapon, embedding himself in the nation's collective psyche. He stalked the unsuspecting, targeting couples in secluded areas. It wasn't enough for him to kill, he craved attention, power over his victims, and the authorities. His infamous coded messages were more than just taunts, they were puzzles, challenges to the police and the press, daring them to outsmart him. But behind every letter was a veil of mystery, a dark genius who seemed to always be one step ahead, hiding in plain sight while simultaneously sending the message, I could be anywhere. I could be anyone, The Zodiac Killer's reign was unique in how it combined brutality with psychological warfare. As his body count rose, so did his notoriety. And even as decades passed, and new serial killers emerged, the Zodiac stood apart, a boogeyman for an entire generation. People locked their doors at night, couples avoided secluded lovers' lanes, and the entire country watched in horror as the Zodiac played his twisted game. Yet, the most haunting aspect wasn't just the killings or the taunts, it was the silence. The sudden absence of messages, the unanswered questions, the possibility that the Zodiac might still be out there, blending into the shadows of everyday life, waiting. It's the uncertainty that lingers, the unsettling reality that this story, in many ways, remains unfinished. As we delve deeper into the chilling details of his crimes, his messages, and the endless investigation, one question looms large: who was the Zodiac Killer? And why, after all these years, does he still captivate us? If you're captivated by the mystery of the Zodiac Killer, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more gripping documentaries. Share this with others who love exploring unsolved cases. On a cold, quiet night in Vallejo, California, December 20th, 1968, something sinister unfolded on Lake Herman Road, a stretch of desolate countryside where young couples often sought solitude. But that night, innocence collided with something far darker. David Faraday, just 17, and his girlfriend, 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen, were excited for their first official date, unaware it would tragically be their last. Their car was found parked near a gravel turnout along the road, a place typically reserved for young lovers seeking privacy. But privacy turned to isolation, and isolation became the perfect setting for what would soon be known as the Zodiac Killer's first recorded act of violence. As the couple sat in their car, a vehicle approached, and what happened next would set in motion a series of murders that would baffle investigators for decades. David and Betty Lou were ambushed, completely unprepared for the horror that awaited them. A shadowy figure approached their vehicle, and without warning, opened fire. David was shot in the head at close range, dying instantly in the car. Betty Lou, in a desperate attempt to flee, was shot multiple times in the back as she tried to escape across the dark, empty field. The scene left behind was brutal and haunting. Their bodies were discovered shortly after by a passing motorist, and the investigation began. But little did anyone know, this would only be the beginning, a precursor to a string of senseless killings that would terrorize the region. Law enforcement was baffled. Who could have committed such a cold-blooded act, seemingly without motive, and left no trace? At the time, these murders were not immediately connected to a larger pattern. The killer was unknown, his motives unclear, and Vallejo's double murder could have easily been forgotten in the annals of unsolved crimes. But as time went on, the killer would make sure his presence was felt. The brutality of Lake Herman Road was more than just a random act of violence. It was the chilling start of something much bigger, the birth of a shadow that would loom over California and eventually the world. This first killing established a signature: the randomness, the cold detachment, the targeting of young, innocent victims. And the lack of any clear reason behind the murders only deepened the fear. Why these two teenagers? Why here? It was a question that would haunt their families, their community, and soon, the entire nation. Little did anyone know that this was only the beginning of the Zodiac's game, a terrifying prologue to a series of violent acts that would grow in cruelty, randomness, and fear. In the summer of 1969, the killer who had already taken the lives of innocent victims in Northern California decided it was time to reveal himself, if only just enough to taunt the police, the press, and the entire community. He wasn't content with simply killing, he wanted the world to know his name, or rather, the name he had chosen, Zodiac. On August 1st, 3 nearly identical letters arrived at 3 major newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. The letters were chilling, beginning with the now infamous opening line, "Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking." But these weren't just letters, they were puzzles, cryptic codes intended to baffle, confuse, and terrify. Each letter contained 1/3 of a cipher, a seemingly random series of symbols, numbers, and letters that, when pieced together, supposedly held the key to understanding the Zodiac's motives and identity. This wasn't just communication, it was a game, and the Zodiac had laid down the challenge. He demanded that the ciphers be printed on the front page of each newspaper, threatening to kill more people if his demands weren't met. The world watched in horror as the Zodiac continued to toy with the authorities, and in a terrifying twist, he made good on his threats by striking again, continuing his murderous spree. But the letters, those cryptic, taunting messages, became a symbol of his control. The Zodiac didn't just kill his victims, he manipulated the public's fear, forcing everyone to pay attention. And pay attention they did. Cryptographers, amateur sleuths, and the press scrambled to solve the ciphers, desperate for answers. The Zodiac knew this. He reveled in the chaos he had created, knowing that his puzzles might never be solved, that he could remain in the shadows while the world scrambled to decode his twisted mind. The first cipher, known as the Z408 cipher, was cracked by a husband and wife in California after only a few days. But what it revealed was perhaps even more unsettling than the mystery itself. The message was chillingly direct. "I like killing people because it is so much fun." It wasn't just a riddle to be solved, it was a declaration of enjoyment in murder, a cold and terrifying insight into the mind of a killer who thrived on chaos and attention. But despite the partial success in decoding the cipher, the most important question remained unanswered. Who was the Zodiac? The letters provided no real clues to his identity. Instead, they fed into the growing fear, creating a persona that felt omnipresent, a threat that could strike at any moment. These chilling letters were just the beginning. They marked the start of a communication pattern that would span years, each new message more cryptic, more terrifying than the last. The Zodiac's reign of terror wasn't just physical, it was psychological. And as the letters continued to arrive, each one reinforced a single, horrifying truth: the Zodiac wasn't just a killer. He was a ghost who could haunt anyone, anywhere, and he was never truly gone. As summer waned in 1969, the Zodiac Killer's reign of terror seemed to reach a new and horrifying chapter. On September 27th, a serene day at Lake Berryessa, a popular spot for picnicking and swimming, turned into a scene of unthinkable horror. The lake, nestled among the rolling hills of Napa County, was a picturesque backdrop for what would become one of the Zodiac's most chilling and dramatic attacks. The victims that day were Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau, a young couple enjoying a day out by the water. Little did they know that their quiet retreat would be shattered by the arrival of a man who had already made a name for himself as a merciless killer. The Zodiac approached the couple in a manner that was almost theatrical, as if the day's events were scripted for maximum terror. He appeared on the scene wearing a hood, a bizarre, distinctive costume that set this attack apart from his previous crimes. The hood, which had a cross-circle symbol drawn on it, was part of a disturbing ensemble that included a black, executioner-style robe. This was not just about murder, this was a performance, and the Zodiac was determined to make it a spectacle. The Zodiac's appearance was a chilling reminder of how he blended theatrics with terror. He approached the couple and, under the pretense of needing help with his car, quickly took control of the situation. With a calculated coldness, he brandished a knife and forced Darlene and Michael to lie down on the grass. The Zodiac then proceeded to bind their hands and feet. The scene was methodical, with a grim purpose that suggested he had planned this attack with unsettling precision. In an even more sinister twist, the Zodiac chose this moment to make a horrifying statement about his identity and motives. After tying up the victims, he turned his attention to the nearby car, where he scrawled his infamous symbol, a cross within a circle, on the door. This was not just a mark, it was a declaration, an assertion of his presence and his power. What made the Lake Berryessa attack even more chilling was the Zodiac's choice to use a hood. It was a deliberate move, one that added a layer of psychological terror to the physical violence. The hood was not just a disguise, it was a statement, a way to dehumanize his victims and distance himself from the crime. In the distorted view of the Zodiac, it made the act of killing almost impersonal, as if the hood transformed him into something less than human. As the Zodiac continued his heinous act, he took the opportunity to converse with his victims, making them feel every bit of his sadistic pleasure. The attack was brutal, and Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau suffered unspeakable horrors. Yet, in an ironic twist, Michael Mageau survived the attack, offering crucial testimony that would later help investigators piece together the events of that fateful day. The Lake Berryessa attack was a disturbing showcase of the Zodiac's capacity for theatrical cruelty. The hooded figure, the cross-circle symbol, and the calculated manner of the attack all spoke to a killer who was not only a master of murder but also a manipulator of fear. The spectacle of his appearance, the audacity of his actions, and the chilling nature of his taunts left an indelible mark on those who witnessed it and those who later heard the details. In the aftermath, the police were left with an even more haunting puzzle. The hooded figure, the detailed yet cryptic nature of the Zodiac's crime, and the bizarre elements of the attack all added to the growing enigma of his identity. The Lake Berryessa attack was not just a new chapter in the Zodiac's series of murders, it was a macabre performance, a demonstration of his ability to control, terrify, and captivate the public's imagination with a mask of fear. The night of October 11, 1969, in San Francisco was marked by an event that would become one of the most infamous chapters in the Zodiac Killer's reign of terror. On this crisp evening, Paul Stine, a 29-year-old cab driver, was working his usual shift. Little did he know that this would be his last night behind the wheel. Paul Stine had picked up a fare in the bustling neighborhood of the city, a routine that should have been as ordinary as any other night. He drove through the city streets, unaware that his passenger was a man who had already struck fear into the hearts of many. The journey would lead him to the Presidio Heights area, a predominantly residential and relatively quiet part of San Francisco, where a horrifying act would unfold. The night was clear, and the city's lights reflected off the streets as Paul Stine navigated his cab towards the designated destination. The street he was heading to was known for its charm and tranquility, a stark contrast to the horror that was about to ensue. As they reached the intersection of Washington and Cherry Streets, the Zodiac Killer made his move. The Zodiac had chosen his victim with chilling precision. When Stine stopped at a stop sign, the Zodiac drew a revolver and shot him in the head. The cold-blooded nature of this murder was staggering, especially considering the public nature of the crime. There were no signs of struggle, no indication that Stine had even seen it coming. The Zodiac had executed his plan with brutal efficiency. The horror did not end with the shooting. After killing Paul Stine, the Zodiac Killer took a step further into the macabre. He didn't simply flee the scene, he committed the crime with an audacity that would define his later acts. The killer's next move was to tear a piece of Stine's shirt, which he later used to taunt the police. This small but significant piece of evidence became a chilling reminder of the Zodiac's brutality and his need to assert his dominance over law enforcement. What makes the Presidio Heights murder particularly notable is the manner in which the Zodiac taunted the authorities. Just hours after the murder, he sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, which included a piece of Paul Stine's blood-stained shirt. The letter detailed the killing in a manner that was both chilling and taunting. He described the murder in a manner that seemed to relish the shock and horror he was causing. In this letter, the Zodiac also hinted at his ability to continue his killing spree, further asserting his control over the public sphere. The murder was more than just a brutal act, it was a bold statement. The Zodiac's choice to kill a cab driver in such a public area underscored his ability to strike anywhere, anytime. It was a clear message to the public and the police: no one was safe. The Zodiac Killer had managed to not only commit a heinous crime but also to leave a profound impact on the psyche of a city already grappling with his previous horrors. Investigators were left with a case that seemed to defy the usual patterns of violence. The randomness of the crime, combined with the Zodiac's brazenly public display, added a new layer of complexity to the investigation. Eyewitnesses had seen a man fleeing the scene, but the Zodiac's appearance was so ordinary that it became nearly impossible to identify him. The murder of Paul Stine in Presidio Heights stands out not just for its brutality, but for the way it encapsulated the Zodiac Killer's terrifying persona. It was a high-profile killing that demonstrated his willingness to operate in broad daylight and his knack for turning ordinary situations into scenes of terror. The sheer audacity of the crime, coupled with the Zodiac's taunting correspondence, left an indelible mark on the city and solidified the case as one of the most haunting and puzzling chapters in the Zodiac's macabre history. In the end, the murder of Paul Stine was a stark reminder of the Zodiac Killer's relentless pursuit of fear and chaos. It was a murder that spoke volumes about his character and left a trail of unanswered questions that would continue to haunt investigators and the public alike for decades to come. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror wasn't just about the murders. It was his letters to the media that turned him into a symbol of fear and fascination, engaging in a chilling game of cat and mouse with the public and authorities alike. The media frenzy that ensued was fueled by the Zodiac's audacious communications, each letter designed not just to taunt, but to manipulate the fear and curiosity of a nation. It all began with the Zodiac's first set of letters in the summer of 1969. The killer chose to communicate with the press, ensuring that his messages were broadcasted widely. Each letter was meticulously crafted, often featuring cryptic codes and personal taunts that seemed almost to challenge the media and law enforcement. He reveled in the attention, knowing that his messages would captivate the public and leave investigators scrambling. The letters themselves were a spectacle. The Zodiac used them to assert his dominance, his need to be in control of the narrative surrounding his crimes. He began with the infamous cipher letters, where he sent a series of cryptic ciphers to newspapers, each one a puzzle that he dared the public and authorities to solve. These ciphers were not just a game, they were a psychological weapon. The Zodiac enjoyed the power he held over those who attempted to decode his messages, a game that turned ordinary people into amateur detectives and created a sense of urgency and fear. One of the most infamous of these letters was the Dragon Card letter, which he sent to the San Francisco Chronicle in November 1969. In this correspondence, the Zodiac included a cryptogram and a threat, announcing his intention to kill again if his letter wasn't published. The letter was a disturbing mixture of arrogance and menace, underscoring his need to maintain the spotlight. It was not just about killing, it was about being acknowledged and feared. The media frenzy reached a fever pitch with the Zodiac's ongoing taunts. He seemed to relish the chaos he created, knowing that each letter would drive headlines and spark public anxiety. He was a master of manipulation, using the media to spread his terror and ensure that his actions were always in the public eye. The letters often included bizarre and unsettling details about his crimes, or cryptic statements that further fueled speculation and fear. One notable letter from 1970 was the Halloween card, a seemingly innocuous greeting card with a chilling message inside. The Zodiac's choice of medium for this letter, a holiday card, was a macabre twist that highlighted his twisted sense of humor. It was a reminder of how he played with the norms and expectations of society, using even the most benign items to convey his threats and taunts. Each letter was more than just a communication, it was a performance. The Zodiac's need to be acknowledged and feared was evident in every word he penned. He crafted his letters to ensure that they would be analyzed, debated, and discussed. His taunts were not just about gloating, they were a way to assert his control over the public narrative, to remind everyone that he was always watching, always ready to strike again. The media's reaction to these letters was a mix of fascination and fear. Each new communication from the Zodiac sparked intense scrutiny and speculation. The public was captivated by the cryptic messages, the chilling details, and the audacious threats. The letters turned the Zodiac into a media sensation, a figure who could captivate and terrify with nothing more than words. As the Zodiac continued his campaign of terror through his letters, the media frenzy only grew. Newspapers published his letters in full, often alongside the ciphers, further fueling public interest and anxiety. The killer's ability to manipulate the media and play on public fear made him a larger-than-life figure, a shadowy presence that loomed over the city and the nation. In this grim game of cat and mouse, the Zodiac Killer demonstrated a chilling understanding of the power of media and public perception. His letters were not just messages, they were a form of psychological warfare, a way to assert his dominance and keep the world captivated by his reign of terror. Through his taunts and his ciphers, he managed to turn his crimes into a media spectacle, ensuring that his presence was felt far beyond the crime scenes he left behind. The Zodiac Killer's cryptic ciphers were not merely a means of communication, they were a puzzle, a challenge, and a symbol of his twisted brilliance. These ciphers were meticulously crafted, each one a key to understanding the mind of a killer who seemed to delight in the chaos and confusion he created. The Zodiac's first cipher, known as the Z408 cipher, was sent to the media in July 1969. It was a daunting 408-character code, a seemingly random assortment of symbols, numbers, and letters that invited both intrigue and dread. The challenge was clear: solve the cipher, and perhaps gain insight into the killer's psyche. The public and the police were left scrambling to decipher it. In a rare turn of events, the Z408 cipher was cracked within a week by a husband and wife team, Donald and Betty Harden. The decoded message revealed a disturbing glimpse into the Zodiac's mind. It read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." This macabre confession was a chilling insight into the Zodiac's motivations, providing a glimpse of his sadistic pleasure. The successful decryption of this cipher offered hope that the remaining codes might also be solved, but it also highlighted the Zodiac's ability to weave terror into every aspect of his communication. However, the Zodiac was far from finished with his cryptographic games. The next cipher, known as the Z340, was even more complex. This 340-character code was sent in November 1969, and it was far more intricate than its predecessor. The Z340 cipher became a symbol of the Zodiac's arrogance and his penchant for tormenting those who tried to unravel his codes. For years, it defied all attempts at decryption, becoming a source of frustration for cryptographers, both amateur and professional. The Z340 cipher remained unsolved for decades, a constant reminder of the Zodiac's elusive nature. It was a test of perseverance and skill, one that seemed almost designed to remain unsolved. The challenge was exacerbated by the Zodiac's apparent delight in the process, as if he were savoring the continued mystery and confusion. In December 2020, a breakthrough occurred when a team of private citizens, including a group of amateur codebreakers, finally solved the Z340 cipher. The decrypted message was a disturbing blend of arrogance and derision, reaffirming the Zodiac's sadistic pleasure in his crimes. The message included the taunting line, "I hope you are trying to catch me." This revelation was a reminder of how deeply the Zodiac reveled in his power over others, and how his manipulative games continued to captivate and terrify. Yet, not all of the Zodiac's ciphers have been solved. The final known cipher, the Z13, was sent in 1971 and remains one of the most enigmatic. This shorter cipher, only 13 characters long, has puzzled experts for years. Its simplicity contrasts with the complexity of the other ciphers, and it has become a symbol of the Zodiac's enduring mystery. Despite numerous attempts to crack it, the Z13 cipher remains an unresolved piece of the Zodiac's cryptographic puzzle. The Zodiac's use of ciphers was more than just a game, it was a psychological strategy. By embedding cryptic messages within his communications, he created an ongoing sense of dread and fascination. The ciphers became symbols of his control, tools he used to manipulate and torment both the public and investigators. They were a means of asserting his dominance, ensuring that his presence was felt long after the physical acts of terror had occurred. The analysis of these ciphers reveals much about the Zodiac's personality and intentions. Each code was a reflection of his desire to remain elusive, to challenge those who sought to understand him. The ongoing mystery of the unsolved ciphers only adds to the enigma of the Zodiac Killer, keeping his legacy alive through the puzzles he left behind. As we continue to unravel the complexities of the Zodiac ciphers, we gain a deeper understanding of his twisted genius and his need for control. The ciphers are not just historical artifacts, they are enduring symbols of a killer who used cryptography to deepen the mystery and maintain his hold over the collective psyche. Each code, solved or unsolved, is a testament to the Zodiac's chilling ability to manipulate and terrorize, ensuring that his legacy of fear endures. Arthur Leigh Allen remains one of the most notorious names in the Zodiac Killer investigation, a shadowy figure whose involvement in the case has fascinated and haunted both law enforcement and amateur sleuths alike. As we dive into the enigmatic life and legacy of Allen, we uncover a labyrinth of clues, theories, and missed opportunities that left the public and investigators grappling with a profound sense of unresolved mystery. Born on December 18, 1933, Arthur Leigh Allen was a former schoolteacher who had a life that seemed, on the surface, to be ordinary. But underneath this veneer of normalcy lurked a man whose behavior and history would eventually raise suspicions of the highest order. Allen's connection to the Zodiac Killer case was first brought into the spotlight through a combination of circumstantial evidence and the disturbing coincidences that seemed to align with the Zodiac's profile. One of the most compelling aspects of Allen's suspected involvement was his background. Allen had a criminal record that included child molestation, a fact that made him an even more disturbing candidate for the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer's attacks had often been marked by a disturbing blend of violence and psychological manipulation, traits that seemed to parallel Allen's own history. Moreover, witnesses from several of the Zodiac's crime scenes reported descriptions that, in some ways, matched Allen's physical appearance. But what truly cemented Allen's position as a prime suspect was the convergence of various pieces of evidence, including his own troubling behavior. He had a penchant for violence and disturbing interests, which seemed to fit the profile of the Zodiac Killer. In fact, during the late 1960s and early 1970s, he was known to have been in the vicinity of several key locations tied to the Zodiac's crimes. This geographical overlap, combined with Allen's personal history, created a storm of suspicion that would follow him for years. Yet, despite this mounting suspicion, the case against Allen was never enough to lead to a formal charge. Investigators faced a series of significant hurdles that prevented them from definitively linking him to the Zodiac Killer's crimes. One major issue was the lack of concrete evidence. While circumstantial evidence and witness testimonies provided a framework for suspicion, there was no direct physical evidence tying Allen to the crime scenes. No fingerprints, DNA, or other forensic evidence were found that could irrefutably connect him to the Zodiac's gruesome acts. Another critical factor was Allen's own death. Allen died in 1992 from complications related to his health, which meant that he could never be formally charged or tried in a court of law. His death before any conclusive evidence could be gathered or before any trial could take place created an insurmountable barrier to legal justice. Additionally, the Zodiac Killer's taunting letters and cryptic messages provided investigators with a peculiar challenge. The Zodiac was known for his elaborate and often misleading communications, which sometimes seemed designed to confuse and mislead the investigation. Allen's behavior, including his attempts to explain away his own suspicious actions, added another layer of complexity to the investigation. It was often difficult for investigators to separate genuine leads from deliberate attempts to throw them off track. Over the years, new evidence and forensic advancements have continued to be explored. Some investigators have argued that advancements in DNA testing and other forensic technologies might have yielded new insights if they had been available during Allen's lifetime. However, despite these technological improvements, the absence of crucial evidence during the time of Allen's suspected involvement remained a persistent obstacle. Allen's story remains one of the most intriguing and unsettling aspects of the Zodiac Killer case. His life and actions continue to fascinate those who delve into the dark history of this infamous killer. The unanswered questions about Allen's true involvement, or lack thereof, serve as a haunting reminder of the limits of forensic science and the complexities of human behavior. The case of Arthur Leigh Allen stands as a testament to the tragic reality of many criminal investigations, that sometimes, despite all efforts, the truth remains elusive, and the shadows of doubt continue to loom large. As the Zodiac Killer case unfolded, it became clear that the search for answers would be anything but straightforward. Beyond the infamous suspect Arthur Leigh Allen, there were other figures who emerged from the shadows of suspicion, each adding layers of complexity to the investigation. Among these were Rick Marshall and Richard Gaikowski, two individuals whose names became interwoven with the Zodiac's web of mystery. Rick Marshall, whose name has surfaced in discussions about the Zodiac Killer, was a figure whose connections to the case were both intriguing and controversial. Marshall was known to have had a background that seemed to align with some aspects of the Zodiac's profile. With a history of petty crimes and an unstable lifestyle, Marshall appeared to fit the mold of someone who might be involved in such a violent and enigmatic case. His name surfaced due to various reports and allegations linking him to the Zodiac's crimes, but the evidence was often circumstantial. Witnesses and investigators noted similarities in his physical description and behavior, but there was no concrete proof that directly tied him to the Zodiac Killer's known crime scenes. As a result, Marshall's connection to the case remained a matter of speculation and debate, never advancing beyond the realm of theory. Richard Gaikowski was another prominent name that emerged in the investigation. Gaikowski, a journalist by profession, was suggested as a suspect based on his background and certain behaviors that seemed to align with the Zodiac's profile. Gaikowski was known for his involvement in the counterculture movement of the 1960s and had a reputation for being a provocative and enigmatic figure. His involvement in the case was further fueled by claims from various individuals who suggested that Gaikowski had a suspicious connection to the Zodiac Killer. However, like with many suspects in the Zodiac case, the evidence against Gaikowski was often circumstantial. The idea that Gaikowski could be the Zodiac Killer was bolstered by theories that his writings and public statements could have been a reflection of the Zodiac's mindset, but no concrete forensic evidence was ever found to link him directly to the crimes. These suspects, among others, paint a picture of a case filled with complexity and intrigue. The Zodiac Killer's choice of victims, the cryptic messages, and the overall mystery surrounding the case left a trail of suspicion that led investigators and the public alike to explore various theories. Each new suspect brought with them a mix of hope and skepticism, as new evidence and theories emerged and were scrutinized. What sets these suspects apart is the way their stories intertwine with the Zodiac Killer's infamous legend. Each suspect's background, actions, and behavior provided potential clues, but they also contributed to the broader narrative of uncertainty and enigma. The investigation into these suspects illustrates the challenges of solving a case where the true identity of the perpetrator remained stubbornly elusive. The search for the Zodiac Killer was marked by a series of false leads and dead ends, each contributing to the complexity of the case. As new suspects came under scrutiny, the mystery deepened, and the challenge of connecting the dots became even more daunting. The intricate web of suspects, including Rick Marshall and Richard Gaikowski, reflects the broader struggle of law enforcement to uncover the truth amidst a labyrinth of clues, theories, and shifting narratives. Ultimately, the quest to identify the Zodiac Killer was a journey fraught with twists and turns, and the involvement of various suspects added layers of intrigue to an already perplexing case. Each name that surfaced brought with it a mix of hope and skepticism, as investigators and the public grappled with the enigma of the Zodiac Killer's true identity. The Zodiac Killer investigation, spanning the late 1960s and early 1970s, is a stark reminder of the complexities and frustrations that can accompany high-profile criminal investigations. From the moment the Zodiac Killer's first letters were received by the media, law enforcement faced a multifaceted and elusive adversary, with each step forward often accompanied by a series of setbacks and dead ends. When the Zodiac Killer first began his campaign of terror, the initial response from law enforcement was one of intense urgency and dedication. The killer's taunting letters, filled with cryptic codes and chilling threats, demanded immediate attention and swift action. Yet, despite their best efforts, police quickly encountered significant challenges. The Zodiac Killer's ability to remain anonymous and continually evade capture posed a relentless obstacle. One of the major difficulties faced by investigators was the Zodiac Killer's deliberate efforts to mislead and confuse them. His letters were not only designed to taunt but also to distract. They often included cryptic ciphers that seemed to mock the authorities' attempts to understand them. Although some of these ciphers were eventually solved, they did little to provide concrete evidence or direct leads on the Zodiac's identity. The killer's communication strategy ensured that investigators were frequently chasing leads that proved to be fruitless. The Zodiac Killer's choice of victims and crime scenes further complicated the investigation. Each attack seemed carefully chosen, with locations and methods that did not follow a predictable pattern. This randomness made it difficult for investigators to establish a clear profile or pattern that could guide their efforts. Additionally, the killer's ability to strike in different areas, sometimes in broad daylight and other times under the cover of darkness, added another layer of complexity to the search. Forensic evidence, which could have been pivotal in the investigation, was often scarce or inconclusive. At the time, forensic technology was not as advanced as it is today. Fingerprints and DNA analysis, which might have been crucial in linking suspects to the crimes, were either lacking or not sufficiently developed to provide definitive results. The Zodiac Killer's ability to cover his tracks, combined with the limitations of forensic technology, meant that vital evidence was often out of reach. As investigators pursued various leads, they encountered numerous dead ends. Suspects were identified, investigated, and often cleared of any involvement, leaving law enforcement with a trail of false leads and wasted resources. The Zodiac Killer's ability to elude capture despite the extensive manhunts and public appeals for information added to the growing sense of frustration among those involved in the investigation. New leads would occasionally emerge, often triggered by fresh information or tips from the public. However, many of these leads proved to be either inconclusive or unrelated to the Zodiac Killer. The sheer volume of tips and information created a chaotic environment where separating credible leads from false ones became a daunting task. The Zodiac Killer's ability to remain elusive and the difficulties faced by law enforcement highlight the broader challenges inherent in high-profile investigations. The case was marked by a series of missed opportunities and unfortunate coincidences, where even the smallest mistake could mean the difference between a breakthrough and a dead end. Despite these challenges, the dedication and perseverance of law enforcement were unwavering. They worked tirelessly, often under intense public scrutiny, to unravel the mystery of the Zodiac Killer. The investigation became a monumental task, characterized by a blend of hope, frustration, and determination. The struggle to capture the Zodiac Killer remains a testament to the complexities of criminal investigations and the limitations of law enforcement resources. It underscores the difficulties of solving a case where the perpetrator is as elusive as the Zodiac Killer, and where each step forward is fraught with the possibility of new obstacles and setbacks. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror had a profound and unsettling impact across California, a psychological shadow that loomed large over the state and influenced every facet of public life, media coverage, and law enforcement efforts. For the public, the Zodiac Killer's presence was nothing short of paralyzing. The killer's chilling letters, which were often accompanied by cryptic ciphers and taunting threats, created a pervasive sense of fear and unease. Every new letter and every murder intensified the public's anxiety, as the Zodiac's calculated violence and sinister communications seemed to suggest that no one was safe. The killer's ability to strike with apparent impunity led to widespread paranoia. Communities began to question their safety in even the most mundane of activities. Public spaces were avoided, and people became hypervigilant, their everyday routines disrupted by the fear of becoming the next target. The media played a crucial role in amplifying the Zodiac Killer's impact. The killer's letters and cryptograms were splashed across newspapers, often in sensational headlines designed to captivate and horrify the public. This media frenzy not only kept the Zodiac Killer's crimes in the public eye but also contributed to a climate of fear and fascination. The coverage often portrayed the Zodiac as an almost mythical figure, a ghostly presence whose motives and identity seemed impossible to decipher. The sensationalism in the media, while keeping the case in the spotlight, also fueled public anxiety and speculation. It became a constant, terrifying topic of conversation and a symbol of fear. For law enforcement, the Zodiac Killer presented a formidable and unprecedented challenge. The case was not only a high-profile murder investigation but also a relentless pursuit of a perpetrator who seemed to revel in the game of cat and mouse. The killer's ability to evade capture despite a massive and coordinated effort by multiple agencies highlighted the limitations and frustrations faced by law enforcement. The Zodiac's taunts and cryptic communications were seen as both a challenge and a mockery, exacerbating the pressure on investigators. The case became a focal point of their professional lives, an unsolved puzzle that cast a long shadow over their careers. The sense of duty to bring the Zodiac to justice was accompanied by a profound sense of frustration over the lack of tangible progress. The Zodiac Killer's impact extended beyond immediate fear and frustration. It became a cultural touchstone, influencing how crimes were reported and discussed. The case underscored the role of media in shaping public perception of crime and criminal investigation. It highlighted the intersection of fear, media, and law enforcement, demonstrating how a single individual's actions could create ripples of terror and uncertainty across an entire state. In essence, the Zodiac Killer's influence was felt on every level of society. The public's fear, the media's sensationalism, and the law enforcement's relentless pursuit all intertwined, creating a lasting legacy of tension and unresolved dread. The Zodiac Killer's impact was not just a moment in time but a haunting reminder of how one person's actions can alter the course of public consciousness and institutional response. The Zodiac Killer's influence has permeated far beyond the confines of law enforcement investigations and media reports, making a profound impact on movies, books, and popular culture. His story has been adapted, reinterpreted, and immortalized across various forms of media, reflecting and amplifying the eerie fascination surrounding this elusive figure. In film, the Zodiac Killer's story has been the subject of numerous adaptations, each bringing a unique perspective to the infamous case. One of the most notable films is David Fincher's Zodiac, 2007, which offers a meticulous and atmospheric portrayal of the investigation. The film captures the tension and frustration faced by detectives and journalists as they delved into the cryptic world of the Zodiac Killer. Fincher's depiction not only chronicles the case but also delves into the psychological impact on those who pursued the killer, offering a hauntingly realistic portrayal of the era's fear and obsession. The influence of the Zodiac Killer extends to other films as well, often serving as a symbol of primal fear and the unknown. His case has inspired countless crime thrillers and horror films that echo the themes of anonymity and terror. The Zodiac's penchant for taunting his pursuers and evading capture has become a template for fictional killers in cinema, representing the ultimate challenge for law enforcement and the ultimate nightmare for the public. In literature, the Zodiac Killer has been the subject of extensive exploration and analysis. Books such as Robert Graysmith's Zodiac and The Zodiac Killer, the definitive book, delve into the case with a mix of investigative journalism and speculative theory. Graysmith's works have become seminal texts for those interested in the Zodiac case, offering detailed accounts of the investigation and the cultural impact of the killer's crimes. These books have helped to shape public understanding of the Zodiac Killer, providing insight into both the facts of the case and the myths that have grown around it. The Zodiac Killer's impact on popular culture is also evident in true crime narratives, podcasts, and documentaries. The case has inspired a wide range of media projects that explore the mystery and psychological aspects of the Zodiac Killer. True crime enthusiasts and filmmakers have found endless fascination in the case, producing content that analyzes every detail and theory surrounding the killer's identity. This continued interest reflects the enduring allure of the Zodiac Killer's story and the broader cultural fascination with unsolved mysteries and criminal psychology. Moreover, the Zodiac Killer's influence can be seen in various forms of art and popular culture beyond the traditional media. The killer's symbols and cryptograms have inspired artistic interpretations, from graffiti to digital art, reflecting the way his story has become ingrained in contemporary culture. The enigmatic nature of the Zodiac's communications and the horror of his crimes have contributed to a cultural lexicon where the Zodiac Killer symbolizes the ultimate embodiment of fear and the unknown. The legacy of the Zodiac Killer in media and popular culture underscores a complex interplay between reality and fiction. His case has become a cultural artifact, representing not just a historical crime but a broader fascination with the macabre and the mysterious. The Zodiac Killer's story continues to captivate and inspire, demonstrating the power of true crime to influence and shape cultural narratives across generations. The Zodiac Killer case, which has remained one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in American criminal history, has experienced renewed interest and progress with the advent of modern forensic technologies. The integration of DNA technology and advanced forensic methods into the investigation has provided new avenues for potentially unmasking the elusive killer, offering hope where there was once only frustration. In recent years, advancements in DNA technology have transformed the way cold cases are approached. For the Zodiac Killer case, the application of DNA analysis has been a particularly promising development. Although DNA evidence was not available during the original investigations, recent forensic breakthroughs have allowed for a re-examination of evidence collected from crime scenes and correspondence. One of the pivotal moments in this modern forensic approach occurred with the re-examination of evidence from the Zodiac Killer's crime scenes. In the early 2000s, forensic experts began to use advanced DNA analysis techniques on the physical evidence that had been preserved for decades. This included reanalyzing samples from items like the envelopes containing the Zodiac's taunting letters and evidence from the crime scenes themselves. In 2018, a significant breakthrough came with the use of forensic genetic genealogy. This technique involves comparing DNA samples from crime scenes to publicly available genetic databases to identify potential relatives of the perpetrator. By creating a genetic profile from the Zodiac Killer's DNA and comparing it to DNA profiles in public databases like GEDmatch, investigators hope to identify potential family connections and narrow down the list of suspects. This method has been successfully used in other high-profile cold cases, such as the Golden State Killer investigation, and offered renewed optimism for the Zodiac case. Despite these advancements, the Zodiac Killer case has presented unique challenges. Forensic evidence from the 1960s and 1970s was often less than ideal, with some samples degraded or contaminated over time. The Zodiac Killer's meticulous efforts to avoid leaving identifiable traces, coupled with the passage of time, has meant that forensic breakthroughs are not always straightforward. Moreover, the Zodiac Killer's cryptic communications, which have become infamous in their own right, have also been subjected to modern forensic analysis. The ciphers and codes that once seemed impenetrable are being revisited with contemporary analytical tools. Although some of these ciphers have been solved, providing insights into the killer's psyche and potential motives, they have not yet led to a definitive breakthrough in identifying the Zodiac Killer. The integration of DNA technology and modern forensic methods into the Zodiac Killer investigation represents a significant shift from the original investigative techniques. It embodies a growing trend in criminal justice, where new technologies and approaches offer the potential to solve cases that have remained cold for decades. As forensic science continues to evolve, it holds the promise of uncovering new evidence and potentially bringing closure to one of the most enigmatic cases in criminal history. The application of these modern forensic techniques offers a glimmer of hope that the Zodiac Killer may one day be identified and brought to justice. The case remains a testament to the enduring quest for answers and the power of technology to shine new light on even the most elusive mysteries. Recent years have seen a surge of renewed interest and potential breakthroughs in the Zodiac Killer case, fueled by advances in forensic technology and novel investigative approaches. Among the most notable developments is the use of forensic genetic genealogy, a method that has revolutionized cold case investigations. In 2021, a significant breakthrough emerged when the Zodiac Killer's DNA profile was successfully matched to a relative using forensic genetic genealogy. This technique involves comparing DNA from crime scene evidence to public genetic databases to identify potential familial connections. By tracing these genetic links, investigators have narrowed down possible suspects, offering new leads in the search for the Zodiac Killer's true identity. Another intriguing development is the reanalysis of the Zodiac Killer's infamous ciphers. Recent advancements in cryptographic technology and artificial intelligence have allowed experts to revisit these complex codes with fresh perspectives. Some researchers believe that new analytical methods may eventually decode remaining portions of the Zodiac's messages, potentially providing critical clues. Additionally, the Zodiac Killer's connection to previously unsolved cases has been re-examined. Investigators are exploring links between the Zodiac's crimes and other cold cases from the same era, searching for patterns or connections that might shed light on the killer's identity. These recent breakthroughs and evolving theories represent a new chapter in the investigation, demonstrating that even decades-old cases can yield new insights with the right tools and approaches. The continued application of modern forensic methods offers a glimmer of hope that the Zodiac Killer's identity may one day be conclusively revealed. The Zodiac Killer's legacy extends far beyond the realm of criminal investigation, weaving its way into the fabric of myths, legends, and hauntings that continue to captivate and unsettle the public imagination. The enigmatic nature of the Zodiac Killer, combined with the unresolved mysteries of the case, has given rise to a rich tapestry of folklore and eerie tales. One of the most enduring myths surrounding the Zodiac Killer is the idea that he remains active or that his influence persists through various copycat crimes. Stories often circulate suggesting that the Zodiac Killer's spirit or ideology continues to inspire new generations of criminals, perpetuating a sense of fear and uncertainty. This mythologizing of the Zodiac Killer taps into deep-seated fears about the unknown and the idea that true evil can transcend time and space. The Zodiac Killer's chilling letters and cryptic ciphers have also inspired a host of legends and ghost stories. For instance, some local legends tell of eerie encounters and unexplained phenomena in areas associated with the Zodiac Killer's crimes. These stories often feature sightings of shadowy figures or unexplained noises, creating an atmosphere of ghostly unease linked to the killer's crimes. Such tales play on the fear that the Zodiac Killer's malevolence might still linger in the places he once haunted. The Zodiac's influence on popular culture has further perpetuated these myths and legends. Films, books, and documentaries about the Zodiac Killer often embellish the story, blending fact with fiction to create a more dramatic and haunting narrative. This blending of reality and myth has contributed to a lasting aura of mystery surrounding the case, as each new adaptation or retelling adds layers to the Zodiac's legendary status. In addition to the folklore, the Zodiac Killer's legacy has inspired a range of conspiracy theories and speculative narratives. Some believe that the killer's true identity was covered up or that he was part of a larger, more sinister network. These theories often reflect broader anxieties about power, secrecy, and the unknown, using the Zodiac Killer as a symbol of deeper societal fears. The haunting nature of the Zodiac Killer's legacy lies in its ability to evoke a primal sense of dread and mystery. The combination of unresolved crimes, cryptic communications, and chilling personal accounts has cemented the Zodiac Killer as a figure of enduring fascination and fear. His legacy serves as a reminder of the darker corners of human nature and the enduring allure of unresolved mysteries. The Zodiac Killer's impact on myths, legends, and ghost stories illustrates how true crime can transcend the boundaries of factual history to become a part of cultural lore. The case continues to haunt the collective imagination, embodying the fears and fascinations of generations past and present. The Zodiac Killer's legacy extends far beyond the realm of criminal investigation, weaving its way into the fabric of myths, legends, and hauntings that continue to captivate and unsettle the public imagination. The enigmatic nature of the Zodiac Killer, combined with the unresolved mysteries of the case, has given rise to a rich tapestry of folklore and eerie tales. One of the most enduring myths surrounding the Zodiac Killer is the idea that he remains active or that his influence persists through various copycat crimes. Stories often circulate suggesting that the Zodiac Killer's spirit or ideology continues to inspire new generations of criminals, perpetuating a sense of fear and uncertainty. This mythologizing of the Zodiac Killer taps into deep-seated fears about the unknown and the idea that true evil can transcend time and space. The Zodiac Killer's chilling letters and cryptic ciphers have also inspired a host of legends and ghost stories. For instance, some local legends tell of eerie encounters and unexplained phenomena in areas associated with the Zodiac Killer's crimes. These stories often feature sightings of shadowy figures or unexplained noises, creating an atmosphere of ghostly unease linked to the killer's crimes. Such tales play on the fear that the Zodiac Killer's malevolence might still linger in the places he once haunted. The Zodiac's influence on popular culture has further perpetuated these myths and legends. Films, books, and documentaries about the Zodiac Killer often embellish the story, blending fact with fiction to create a more dramatic and haunting narrative. This blending of reality and myth has contributed to a lasting aura of mystery surrounding the case, as each new adaptation or retelling adds layers to the Zodiac's legendary status. In addition to the folklore, the Zodiac Killer's legacy has inspired a range of conspiracy theories and speculative narratives. Some believe that the killer's true identity was covered up or that he was part of a larger, more sinister network. These theories often reflect broader anxieties about power, secrecy, and the unknown, using the Zodiac Killer as a symbol of deeper societal fears. The haunting nature of the Zodiac Killer's legacy lies in its ability to evoke a primal sense of dread and mystery. The combination of unresolved crimes, cryptic communications, and chilling personal accounts has cemented the Zodiac Killer as a figure of enduring fascination and fear. His legacy serves as a reminder of the darker corners of human nature and the enduring allure of unresolved mysteries. The Zodiac Killer's impact on myths, legends, and ghost stories illustrates how true crime can transcend the boundaries of factual history to become a part of cultural lore. The case continues to haunt the collective imagination, embodying the fears and fascinations of generations past and present. The shadow cast by the Zodiac Killer is one that has loomed large over true crime history and societal consciousness for decades. As we reflect on the impact of this elusive figure, it becomes clear that the Zodiac Killer's legacy extends far beyond the immediate horror of his crimes. The case has left an indelible mark on the way we understand and approach criminal investigation, media, and public fear. The Zodiac Killer's impact on true crime history is profound. His ability to evade capture, despite extensive investigative efforts, set a precedent for how unsolved mysteries are perceived and pursued. The case has become a benchmark for other cold cases, illustrating the complexities and challenges inherent in solving high-profile crimes. The Zodiac Killer's taunting letters and cryptic ciphers introduced a new level of psychological manipulation and media engagement, influencing how future criminals might interact with law enforcement and the public. In terms of societal impact, the Zodiac Killer's crimes instilled a pervasive sense of fear and unease that affected communities across California and beyond. The media's sensational coverage of the Zodiac Killer amplified this fear, shaping public perception and contributing to a broader dialogue about crime and safety. The case demonstrated the power of media to influence public fear and the ongoing fascination with unsolved mysteries. The Zodiac Killer's legacy is also evident in the way it has shaped popular culture. The case has inspired numerous films, books, and documentaries, each exploring different facets of the Zodiac Killer's story. This cultural fascination reflects a broader societal interest in true crime and the darker aspects of human nature. The myths, legends, and ghost stories that have emerged from the Zodiac Killer's case underscore the way unresolved mysteries can take on a life of their own, becoming part of a larger cultural narrative. As we conclude our exploration of the Zodiac Killer's impact, it is important to recognize both the profound sense of dread he instilled and the enduring questions that his case continues to provoke. The Zodiac Killer remains a symbol of the unknown and the unresolved, a haunting reminder of the limits of human understanding and the complexities of criminal investigation. The case may remain unsolved, but its influence endures. The Zodiac Killer's shadow extends through the corridors of true crime history, public consciousness, and popular culture. His legacy is a testament to the enduring allure of mystery and the relentless pursuit of answers, even in the face of the most elusive and enigmatic of adversaries.